Welcome to Moto Mouths, the podcast for MotoGP, motorsports, and more. I'm your host, Zoe, and I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs.
I'm your other host, also named Zoe, and I stand with my almost disqualified driver, who is in fact driver of the day.
Nothing makes me happier than the fact that Max Verstappen was voted driver of the day.
It was democracy in action.
He is the people's choice.
And it's so, we'll definitely talk about this, but Max Verstappen is him.
He's iconic.
F1 is not anything without him right now.
This sport would be nowhere.
Right. That's that on that.
Not to talk about Jorge Martin for 2 minutes at the top of the pod every pod, but
we have to. He just keeps doing things.
This man, I can't emphasize this enough, and I don't know this man, but shut the fuck up, dude.
No, he keeps talking. Truly, he keeps talking.
This is what your mouth is doing, and this is what it should be doing.
Right. So, for anyone who has been living under a rock over the last week, Jorge Martin put out a statement on his Instagram stories, which is just so funny from a celebrity apology on the Notes app Instagram story.
It was so long. This letter, Taylor Swift's letter, 2 iconic letters released this week.
Okay.
2 iconic letters that were so much writing that I had to scroll in and squint and put on my glasses and try to read.
Take a screenshot, read it sideways,
literally.
Yeah.
Make the fonts bigger, Taylor.
I think also at Taylor specifically, she truly did not optimize that for mobile, which was stupid. It was a PNG.
Or was it on purpose? Maybe her next album is named PNG.
I refuse to get into this with you.
Okay. So
you will not catch me clowning.
Back to Jorge Martin.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of his statement that I do want to read through.
Let's go.
He says, when we signed it, the contract with Aprilia, I agreed with Aprilia that if certain circumstances were not met, I reserved the right to decide my future for 2026. This was an essential condition for me to accept the contract proposal they offered me at that time. At the time, he's talking about the moment he found out that Ducati was going with Marc Marquez instead of him, and then about 6 hours later, announced his contract with Aprilia. That is the time. One of the premises of his contract for this, 2025, 2026 seasons was to have the possibility to test the bike in real circumstances and to understand the team and its working methodology. In this way, I could feel comfortable signing for 2 years instead of 1, and so we included that condition. Here's the thing. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when this first kicked off, which is that it's very common to have performance clauses in contracts for athletes in motorsport. What is very uncommon is the specific nature of Jorge Martin's clause that he outlines here.
Right, because it's not a performance clause, it's a vibe clause.
Right. It basically says, if I don't feel like you guys can deliver a bike in which I feel confident about, I can leave.
If Aprilia doesn't pass the vibe check, I'm out.
Essentially, that's what it is, which is insane. One, for Aprilia to have agreed to, and 2, is very interesting in the sense that it makes it incredibly clear that this was a gut response from Jorge Martin in reaction to the Ducati decision. This has nothing to do with him feeling like Aprilia is a good manufacturer, a good team that he wants to work with. This has nothing to do with him investing in the Aprilia project. This was a knee-jerk response to Ducati, which we all kind of knew, but it's now essentially confirmed. He then goes on to say, I have always been open to dialogue with Aprilia to extend my period to a certain number of Grand Prix after my return to competition. The aim is that both parties can give each other a second chance and feel comfortable before making a decision for 2026. He then says, the only thing I ask is that my will and the spirit of what we agreed at the time with Aprilia be respected. There is no conflict or reproach. I just want to be able to look ahead with clarity after very difficult times and a very serious injury and continue to give the best of myself on and off the track. What that says to me is that he is asking Aprilia to let him go and not take this to court.
Yeah.
What is also very unclear is whether or not that request to extend his consideration period is going to be approved, has been approved, is even still up in the air. That's incredibly unclear.
Right.
And that's what's so crazy about this whole statement is that Jorge is not using this to clarify a decision that he's made or to update the sport. This is essentially trying to use public perception to sway any conversation he's having with Aprilia. Exactly.
It's so bananas to me because this letter also is written so vaguely.
Right.
Which
exactly
is for a billion different reasons, I'm sure. But if you're going to be so vague and so uncertain, it comes back to the fact that you shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Like, this is not a matter to air on Instagram stories.
Right. And if you were going to use any sort of public pressure on this situation, this is meant to come through a journalist mouthpiece. This is not 100%. The kind of thing the main person in this situation needs to be sticking his nose out there saying. Like that
because it also, the press element gives it legitimacy, right? It means people are talking about this. This is a thing that is being widely discussed. It's given legitimacy. It's given something real, some oomph behind it, some backing. Now this is just Jorge Martin writing a breakup letter.
I think there's another factor here too, in the sense that Jorge seems to be pulling for some kind of sympathy factor, which is really interesting because he is exposing a lot of details of this contract and the negotiation process that I don't think put him in an especially great light. He's burning this bridge with Aprilia, except he is the reigning champion, and he's telling everyone that not only did I take Aprilia for a ride, I'm also kicking them on the curb.
Yeah.
To look for my next best opportunity.
Again, this is not something that you want to be doing if you're currently shopping yourself around to other teams.
He is throwing away all of the power and leverage he had going into the Aprilia conversation, going into any other manufacturer conversations now. Like, there's no way anyone signs a contract with him without months of back and forth.
And this clause that he's talking about is not going to be in another contract going forward. No one is ever going to allow that to happen again.
No, of course not. Of course not. And it's an insane contract in the first place. Another big manager in the community said, I've never handled that type of clause in a contract. If a clause is clear and transparent, everything is decided quickly. If it is gray, it will take a long time to resolve, won't bring anything good to the contractual relationship for both parties. Which is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
It is an insane thing for anyone to have signed.
And not to bring it back to Taylor Swift.
Please do.
I'll bring everything back to Taylor Swift. If you want to go the public appeal route, use her as an example. Go back 6 years and look at the letter she released when it was first announced that she did not have her master's. Or when, Scooter Braun was blocking her from performing her songs on the AMAs. It publicly got everyone on her side. So just don't do what you're doing in summation. Stop. This is not good. You also don't know when you're going to get on a bike next.
Right.
Sir, your body is broken. I don't think that you have the weight to be throwing all this shit around. You can't throw anything. All your bones are broke.
Yeah, I'd be worried. It's just a mess. And it's a mess. It's just a mess. I don't there's nothing else to say.
We love mess.
We do.
So anything else in MotoGP this week?
Yes, there's a couple of things. One is that Luca Marini over the last few days has had a no good, very bad week. He was currently in Japan, or he still is in Japan, I believe. He was prepping for, the 8 hours of Suzuka, which is a big deal for, obviously, the Japanese manufacturers because they still participate in that. It's a huge part of, the team culture. And he was supposed to be on the Honda team for that event and had a massive crash during testing for that event, to the extent that Luca's injuries, the list of it is crazy.
It's giving Jorge Martin.
He suffered from a dislocated left hip, damage to the ligaments in his left knee, fractures in the sternum and the left collarbone, and a right-sided pneumothorax, which is a punctured lung, right?
Yes.
Nailed it. So, all of that's really bad. What I think is most concerning for Luca's future right now is the sternum.
Yes, sternums are fucking... How do you even go about healing that shit?
Right. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. So not totally sure on that one. But because of the lung puncture, he can't fly right now. So he'll be in Japan for the next minimum couple of weeks. So he's out right now. And I think it's really interesting just thinking about why he was in Suzuka is Luca is clearly very aware of all of the energy behind Johann Zarco right now and was trying to kind of build up his relationship with Honda by participating in Suzuka. That is obviously not coming to pass. And now Jorge Martin is sniffing around. So who really knows what's going on?
Yeah. That's not, I don't even, what is he in a full body cast? Like, how do you?
Well, he was posting from the hospital.
These men be posting.
And you know what he was posting?
What?
He posted a One Piece meme on Instagram.
What is One Piece?
The anime?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that shit. I'm not a weeb.
No, I don't either. But I'm like, Luca Marini definitely never came off as a weeb. So it's just like extra funny. Like we know Frankie Morbidelli likes anime. He's said that multiple times. We know Pecco's a Lego guy. We know.
Is he really? That's really cute. That's endeared me slightly to Pecco.
He's hype about his Legos, dude.
Do you think he's advocating for a Lego MotoGP race after the Lego F1 race?
I feel like he would advocate more for a life-size Lego bike that he could build. I don't think he really cares about everyone else.
About riding?
Right. I think it's the building is the joy for him.
Well, speaking of Pecco.
Yeah, it was such a good segue.
Thank you.
Pecco had very strong comments when asked about the Jorge Martin statement and the situation. And Pecco very, very clearly said, if you sign a contract, you should stand by it. And was low-key kind of rude. And I was like, all right, go off. Like, love that. This has apparently sparked a rumor that Pecco is a major candidate for Yamaha.
Okay.
According to this rumor, which I want to be very clear, I do not believe is true. And I think is absolutely hysterical.
Right.
I could be totally wrong, but I don't think it's true. Apparently, Yamaha is desperate to pull Pecco away from Ducati and have a Pecco Fabio Quartararo team.
Okay.
Right. It's crazy. I don't really know. Yamaha could probably pay him more.
Remind me who's partnering Fabio.
Oh, Alex Rins, who needs to retire because he can't fucking walk.
Okay. So not really a loss there.
Love and light to Alex Rins, but like, buddy.
Go home.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my thing where it's like, sure, I guess.
In some universe that could happen.
Like, go to sleep, Grandpa. Like, it's okay. It's giving delusional. Like, sorry. And it's especially crazy to me is that Pecco said, if you sign a contract, you should stand by it. We're like,
and that
he's going to cancel
rumors.
his Ducati contract.
Yeah, that's not what that is for literacy. First of all.
Like put everybody back in school. Bring back school.
Hooked on phonics. Let's get them hooked back on phonics.
Woo! Put them back in schools.
No child left behind, baby.
Except we're leaving a bunch.
They have been left behind.
The last thing I think about MotoGP, just to talk about this week, is predictions for Aragon next week.
The Dragon?
No, it's with an A. It's a place, but great pull there.
Thank you. Is that not how it was spelled in the book? I didn't read it.
No, in the book it's with an E. I've read all of them multiple times, clearly. Wow, I'm like getting emotional. Just thinking about it.
Zoe's getting emotional over a MotoGP race for Founding Kitchen.
Listen, wow. This is really reminding me, Aragon was crazy last year.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so I know we all might kind of remember this because it was an insane weekend last year, but if you weren't following the sport at the time, Aragon last year was the first time Marc Marquez won a MotoGP Grand Prix in almost 3 years, over 1,000 days. When I tell you this was a religious experience for me, and I think many other people, cannot convey how deeply and truly I mean that. Also, Aragon is one of the races in Spain, so it does kind of qualify as a little bit of a home race for the Spanish riders. Marc himself does really like this track, so it's a lovely place for that circle to end and start anew. This kind of buoyant historical moment was marred a little bit because Alex Marquez and Pecco had a pretty insane crash that looked very, very dangerous in this race. It was bad, but it was not season ending. However, Pecco did end the weekend saying that Alex Marquez was a dangerous rider, and he made some very interesting comments that unfortunately fanned the flames of the remnants of 2015. which was bad. It was a whole thing. The big story, obviously, is Marc Marquez winning for the first time in over 3 years. And it was lovely. And then he went on to do it, spoiler alert, literally 2 weeks later.
Good job, Mark.
Woo! I think from a predictions perspective, I'm going to go with a Mark and Alex P1 and P2.
Got it.
And then I think I'm going to go with a Frankie Morbidelli P3.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with a Pecco Bagnaia Fail King.
Love it.
I think he is still going to take some time to work on trying to learn this bike, and it's not going to go well.
I think those are all great predictions. I am going to go with a Johan Zarco P3.
I always forget about Johan Zarco.
I'm not making the same mistake. A Fabio Quartararo P2.
Okay.
Marc Marquez P1.
Okay. I love.
And for Fail King, I'm going to go with Frankie Morbidelli.
Ooh, head to head. Once again.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So I will find out who was right and who was wrong.
Most likely it's going to be me being wrong.
Should we move into the great wide world of motorsport?
We shall. So there was a race today in Spain.
Was there?
Yeah, there was. And
why don't you tell me about it?
I don't want to.
Okay.
I mean, I do, because this is a podcast and we have to talk about things. But like, boy, oh boy. So the first thing I want to talk about is that the racing comparison between last week and this week was stark. I thought that watching today, even if it wasn't, entertaining the whole time, which I don't think anything is entertaining the whole time, but it had extremely good overtakes at nearly every point, unique overtakes, unique strategy. It was such a stark contrast. Racing at a place where it's a established circuit, where it is a good circuit to race at, people enjoy racing there, versus a street track where the cars are too big. And what pisses me off is that this great, great, great racetrack is being thrown away for another fuck-ass street race.
Yeah, it's actually really disappointing.
Because this is not going to happen next year.
Right.
Next year is going to be a shitty race, and it's not going to have any overtaking action, and it's going to suck. And it's just so frustrating to watch the sport that we have feelings about throw away good racing for seemingly no reason other than money.
It's really crazy. I saw something maybe a couple months ago where someone legitimately made an argument that now that Liberty is taking over MotoGP, they can start folding in like street tracks into MotoGP.
Can you do street tracks?
Great question. The answer is no. This guy, like everybody was dunking on him. And he's like a journalist in the sport. Like he's not some random dude on Reddit. And like Matt Oxley and Simon Patterson and like previous racers, like everybody was like, okay, so you want people to die.
Yeah, like that results in death.
So if nothing else, at least MotoGP isn't going to be doing street tracks.
We can only hope and pray. So I don't think that there was a ton to talk about vis-a-vis like practices and qualifying. Oscar Piastri took pole. Good job for him. The one interesting thing I think was that Lance Stroll withdrew from the race because his injury from 2023 was causing him pain that had been, I think, occurring for a while. We could talk more about that later because I have a lot of feelings on the Lance Stroll of it all. The other thing I want to talk about is like a first overarching thing of the weekend was that Nico Rosberg was once again commentating for Sky Sports. This is the only time I will ever listen to Sky Sports commentary is when Nico Rosberg is commentating because it is so fascinating. He is so good at it.
We #love Brittany.
Love Brittany. He provides such interesting insight, and also he's so cunty.
I think what I love about Nico Rosberg is that even when I disagree with him, I know that he is like 10 toes down, standing by what he is saying.
And also, he's saying this from an informed place.
Truly, exactly. I think Nico Rosberg is also incredibly beloved for this because he's on Sky TV, which is famous for like some fuck-ass coverage.
Yeah. It's nice to have somebody who is intelligent.
Has actually done this, has been successful, has been one half of the most insane teammate pairing in maybe a couple decades.
A teammate pairing, which famously going back almost 10 years now at Barcelona.
Yes. No, it's crazy too that like he pretty consistently shows up for Barcelona commentary.
Barcelona,
like,
the site of the crime.
Funny.
It is. He was there last year.
Yes.
He was there last year when Lewis podiumed, and he was like, nice to see you again. And Lewis said, thanks.
Yeah, and everybody like clutched their pearls about it.
Famously in 2016, Lewis and Nico collided, took each other out, which led to Max Verstappen's first race win.
At Barcelona.
And God, oh God, I was praying for that to happen, for the two lead cars on track to take each other out so Max Verstappen could win. And that did not happen because God hates joy.
And me. I do want to say, here's one thing about the Nico Rosberg commentary that I had genuine beef with. Nico Rosberg, for some reason, equated the Max and George situation with the Marc Marquez, Valentino Rossi events at Sepang in 2015. And like in some way implied that that situation was deserved and Marc was deserving of all of that, which is very, very weird and also largely debunked at this point in time. And so it's genuinely such a weird comparison to make in a million different ways.
He says a lot of things that are correct. This was not one of them by any means.
No, like it is an insane take for someone to have in the year of our Lord 2025.
Yes, I agree.
If you know anything about MotoGP, that's an insane take to have in 2025. In what fucking world does that equate in any way to Max and George?
Also, just like, why are you talking about MotoGP during an F1 broadcast when famously the only overlap that exists is the Motomouths podcast?
Right. Straight up, Nico Rosberg, keep my wife's name out of your goddamn mouth.
Fucking mouth. All right. Yeah, that's wild.
No, that was crazy.
Like, girl, what? So to start the race, we did get some really interesting action. We had Lewis Hamilton jump from like, P6 to P4 and did a crazy overtake on George Russell, who just kind of like lost out at the beginning, I guess. And then Max was up to P2. He overtook Lando. Fork found the kitchen. There was also some lap 1 contact from guess who?
Oh, am I actually guessing? Is it
again?
Yep.
Fork found in kitchen, cannot race without hitting people multiple times. This led to, I think, damage on both Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon's car. Alex came in for a new front wing. I think Carlos pitted very early as well. And then, nothing really happened until the last, 10 laps of the race, 15 laps of the race.
Which is, bad.
Yeah, it's not good. I will say that there was a lot of really interesting strategy with the tires. There was a lot of undercuts. There was a lot of multi-stops. This was like a 3-stop race in some cases, which led to not really knowing who the leader was or where people stood in the order, which I thought was very interesting and gave some element of
unpredictability.
I agree. And then you get to the end and Kimmy's car says, I'm out.
For the 3rd time in a row.
Yeah. It was like, this was so much fun. I'm so glad you got this practice, but I am going to bow out of this right now. Thank you.
No, Kimmy's car is famous for Irish exiting. Truly is just I'm done.
Truly Irish exiting, which led to a safety car, which then led to a safety car restart.
And this is where it all fell apart.
And this is where it all got messy. This was a series of unfortunate events. I'm going to pull this up so I don't get it wrong.
No, because it was crazy.
Because it was crazy. So the safety car comes out, everyone pits. Max Verstappen somehow gets pitted with hards, which is definitely a Red Bull fuck up.
And I know when he was coming in, was talking about wanting fresh tires, but I don't know in what fucking world pitting for fresh tires before a safety car restart for 10 to 15 laps left of the race. Why are we pulling out the hard tires? Why?
Well, apparently he had no more softs or mediums.
Then they should have just kept him out.
That's what I think. His tires were not up to temperature. He slid through the final corner. He made contact with Leclerc. I think they went to stewards afterwards and it was just racing. No one was at fault.
It's so funny that Charles was like, yeah, if I were Max, I would be doing the same thing in reference to their little spat.
Right. So Max is in 4th. He's trying to fend off George Russell. George Russell goes to overtake him on the inside. They make contact. He stays ahead. Red Bull goes on the radio and tells him to give up the position. Otherwise, he's going to get a penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Max says he was avoiding a collision. Shouldn't have to see the place. Then it gets messier. He does slow down, whether to see the place or not. Who knows? George thinks he's being let through, tries to pass, and the two make contact again. George comes out in front. The stewards say it's Max's fault. They hand him a penalty, dropping him from 5th to P10. The question is, did Max intentionally hit George Russell?
Well, here's the thing. I think there's a preceding question. The preceding question is, did Max ever need to give back the position? And the FIA says, no, he didn't.
Correct.
The thing that kicked it all off, the catalyst of this whole situation, is Red Bull making a mistake and Max catching it and no one listening to him.
Yes.
And I think that is, to me, obviously I'm biased. I love Max. Sorry. Actually, no, not sorry. Fuck you.
Exactly.
That is the more prescient question to me. Because as we all know, Jonathan Wheatley, who was Red Bull's sporting director for like 10, 12 years, left at the end of last year and is now the TD for Sauber. Jonathan Wheatley made a statement and was like, yeah, I think every lap Max drives is incredible. I think he's one of the best of the entire sport. And I don't really see anything wrong with the way he raced.
I agree.
So that is like truly, in my opinion, evident of the fact that Jonathan Wheatley would not have made the same call.
No, he would not have.
What is insane to me is that Red Bull as a team bungled this so badly.
They fucked it.
What are you doing not taking 2 seconds to think about the fact that the guy actually boots on the ground is saying, I absolutely do not need to give it back?
Or wait for the stewards to note the incident at least.
Right, exactly. That is like classically how you deal with that kind of situation. It is insane to me that that happened. To me, that is like the big issue.
All around, I think that Red Bull management had a bad weekend. But I will say, too, the fallout from this, I want to start with Toto Wolff.
Please, because I find what he has said and not said very interesting.
I do, too. You would think that Toto Wolff would be irate after this.
You would think that Toto Wolff would be calling for Max to be, like, crucified.
Right. Instead, he was like, suddenly I can't read. What happened? I didn't even see what happened.
Toto refused to say that it was entirely Max's fault. And I wonder if on some level, Toto is seeing the same thing, which is that Red Bull made a horrible strategic call that muddied the waters for everyone involved.
Is Toto Wolff seeing a Max phone call?
He very well could be. I think Toto has never let that dream go. Obviously, like, we know he kidnapped Kenny, like, out of the cradle.
An infant from his mother's arms.
Because of his trauma of missing out on the Max Verstappen. So yes, I think in any situation that Toto can get Max and Mercedes, he will do that. He will do everything he can.
There is the other option that his amnesia from last week is continuing and worsening.
This is true.
Maybe it's a combination of all three.
Who knows? Not me.
Who's to say? And then I do think an interesting element to all of this is that George's contract is currently up for negotiation. And he was asked about it this week a couple times. And in it, he kind of flatly said that there's no way Max is going to replace him at Mercedes.
And I respect that he needs to believe that.
Exactly. Bless his heart.
Yeah, sure.
Do you really think Toto wouldn't sell you for less than a potato chip for Max Verstappen? Like, buddy.
No, it is one of those things where it's just like, okay, I'm going to let you think that.
The thing about George Russell's, I would respect him a lot more if every argument he made to press didn't start with think of the children. Have something more substantial than that, because I don't give a fuck about the children.
Could not give less of a fuck about the children. Sorry, I really just couldn't. What child is sitting through a full Formula One race and understanding the nuance of it all? I've never met that child. I mean, this whole think of the children thing is so overdone. If you want to have a conversation and if you want to have an argument about the way Max races and that being against the rules or whether or not we need to shift the rules, I think that's a conversation worth having. That is well within your rights and a worthwhile conversation to have. Think of the children is such a straw man argument, to me conveys that you just don't like what happened.
Yeah.
And you want some kind of moral support for your part of the argument.
There is no morality in Formula One.
I don't know how the fuck you can say that when Fernando Alonso was literally right next to you.
When Michael Schumacher was committing war crimes and winning 7 championships, did anyone say think of the children?
Did we all just like forget that everyone kind of like deifies Senna, who is famously a perfect person who never did anything controversial?
No, never. This is the oil big tobacco, grid girls, crime, tax evasion, money laundering, earth ruining sport. You have no legs to stand on when you talk about children.
It's just lazy. Like, it's truly like,
it's lazy.
It's a lazy argument and it's not relevant. And I don't really give a fuck.
I'm giving you an F on your persuasive essay, George Russell.
Yeah, George, you would never make the debate team.
Never. So I'm sure that this will not be talked about at all for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we're all just going to leave it on the track and it'll all be fine. And we won't have to hear about this for the next 2 weeks nonstop. Anyways, some other things to talk about. Nico Hülkenberg getting 5th. Fernando Alonso.
First points of the season, baby.
No longer pointless. Fernando Alonso, Rookie of the Year, getting points.
That's my guy.
Azad Kadjar being the highest placing Red Bull driver on the grid.
Max's whole thing and Isaac's solid performance really hid a lot of the issues that Yuki is still dealing with, even after quite a few updates to the car that are supposed to make it more manageable for him. I don't really feel like we have to say it again, but Red Bull, you made this bed.
Get cozy.
Yeah.
Arvin Lindblad won the F2 race.
Yeah, so basically he's going to be in that car next year.
Not just one collision on track this race, but what was it? 2, 3? Multiple.
I'm so sick of this guy.
We say it every week. It's the thesis of the podcast. It's the thesis of the 2025 season. This is what they crucified Daniel Ricciardo for.
And he's not even good.
And then, we have to talk about our predictions. Okay, so you said Charles Leclerc fail king.
Hey.
Lewis Hamilton P3.
That was close.
Sure. Oscar P2. Lando P1. So incorrect. I said fail king Fernando Alonso. Reverse curse anyone. P3 Carlos Sainz, woof. P2 Oscar Piastri, P1 Max Verstappen. So, we were not really.
There was some, I feel like I was close. The fact that I had just swapped Lando and Oscar, whatever. My reverse curse for Fail King, nailed that once again. There's some moments to enjoy, I think, in that prediction.
Sure. Thankfully, we don't have to make a prediction this week. So it'll give a couple weeks off for us to think about what we did. We do need to talk about the Lance Stroll of it all. Famously, everyone is super cool about Lance all the time. And it's really frustrating to me.
This was so insane. The just blatant shit people were publishing this weekend about him.
There was a rumor started that the reason he re-injured himself was that during Q2, he apparently, this all never happened. I want to preface this. He went on a tirade and threw shit around the garage. Now, shockingly, on a live broadcast with 1 million cameras all around him, none of it was captured. No one caught this. No photographers caught this. Nobody spoke a word of it in the garage. Nothing.
There was also footage that Aston Martin had to supply to the FIA from this sequence of events, from this same amount of time that this report alleges the kind of freak out happened. And the FIA, say what you will about them, and I will and will continue to do so. They're pretty solid about reacting quickly about teams and drivers getting into physical altercations outside of a car. And nothing came out
this
from
did
the
not
FIA
happen.
About this.
This
did not happen.
This did not happen. This is blatant.
Also, maybe just think about the fact that when you break both wrists and then very quickly get back to your job of professional heavy wheel turner, the healing isn't going to go so great.
I'm also so tired of this narrative that Lance doesn't want to be there. Because if I were a billionaire and I didn't want to do something, I simply would not be doing it. I would simply not be doing it. I would be sleeping on a boat on my dad's mega yacht that was too big to fit through the canals of Amsterdam. You could not make me do it.
I think it's really lovely that Fernando Alonso, who is famously one of the most cutthroat, intelligent, racing-minded person,
which is incredible for someone his age and a rookie.
So young.
But is so young, but so advanced for his age.
Aside from all of this other kind of nonsense about Lance that circulates like fucking clockwork, I think it is incredibly telling that Fernando Alonso speaks so highly of him.
Fernando rates Lance.
But you don't get into F1 without being a good driver on some level.
He was the youngest podium holder for a very long time.
Right.
He might still be.
I think Max is.
He's the youngest race winner. I'm pretty sure Lance is still the youngest podium holder. He also had the only good overtake. The only overtake in Monaco.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want to talk about in the great wide world of motorsport is that F1 Academy, the Netflix series, launched. I haven't gotten all the way through this, but I want to start by saying, and I think we should, both individually watch it and then do a deep dive. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But I want to start by saying, I'm like a couple episodes in, these girls are so infinitely more interesting than Drive to Survive.
I'm so excited. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it, and I'm like very excited.
Also, I do want to talk quickly because this is I don't like reducing women to fashion. However, the fashion on the red carpet for the F1 Academy series was
I haven't seen anything.
Incredible. They looked incredible. Susie Wolf had a clutch where the clasp was her helmet from when she tested the Williams.
That is so good.
Diamond encrusted or crystal.
That's so good.
Clutch. It was incredible. Everyone looked incredible. Maya Vug, not familiar with her game. You looked incredible. It was just so much fun. It was a great night. Anyways, I think that brings us to the grid as ... which for the uninitiated is a moment, our podcast where we select a handful of riders and drivers from across the great wide world of motorsport and categorize them as a person, place, thing, idea, etc. Today is June 1st, the first day of Pride Month. I think we should do the concepts behind the colors of the original Pride flag. For those who aren't aware, the Gilbert Baker Pride flag, the colors were intended to represent pink was to represent sex, red is life, orange is healing, yellow is sunlight, green is nature, turquoise is magic/art, indigo is serenity, violet is spirit. And then I believe that blue was added in at some point, but we're not going to go with that because that's not the OG. Would you like to go first?
I would. I will be going with Marc Marquez and Jorge Martin.
I know what these are going to be, but go ahead.
Marc Marquez is sunlight. I don't think that man has ever turned down an opportunity to tan a day in his life. And I also think it's extra funny because he has a partnership with La Roche-Posay. Sunscreen is typically like what he kind of shills for them. So there you go.
He's a beauty influencer.
He is. Jorge Martin is orange for healing because he needs it.
I knew you were going to say that. I could have clocked that from a mile away. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Poor, what? And Luca Marini doesn't get any orange?
I mean, if I was also doing Luca Marini, I think Luca would be magic and art because I love that he's being vulnerable with us about being an anime fan.
Yeah.
Thank you for your open communication, Luca. Enjoy those drugs.
Okay. I'm going to go with the driver who's not currently racing and his best bud, Lewis Hamilton. So I'm going to go with Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel because he famously wore Pride stuff and was disqualified in Hungary for Pride stuff.
Say ally, Valentina.
I'm an ally. Sebastian Vettel is an ally. Sebastian Vettel is green, which is nature, of course.
With the bees.
The bees, the trees, and the LGBTs.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
Thank you. Sorry for the cues. I left you out. And the I's and the A's and the pluses. And then for Lewis Hamilton, I'm going to say that he is turquoise, magic, and art.
Which I love that Lewis, I think he still does it, where he wears, he incorporates like rainbow into his helmet.
He does incorporate a pride flag into his helmet.
He typically does it, and I don't know how it's like translated to him with Ferrari, but he's typically done it where he wears his rainbow incorporated helmet to races in countries where the LGBTQ community is persecuted.
Famously, Miami.
Yeah, the US. Mm-hmm.
He wore it to Miami. Everything's great.
We're fine. Don't worry about it here. Anyways,
that brings us to the end of the podcast. Next week, we will discuss the events of Aragon and then, I don't know, talk about stuff in Formula One. I'm sure things are going to happen.
Yeah, there's always stuff happening.
Something's going to happen. Come hang out with us on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube. We are a ton of fun there. Don't forget to like, comment, rate, review, share the podcast. Any and all mechanisms to help us grow. We really appreciate it. Anything to say, Zoe?
No, apparently not.
All right. Well, let's keep chatting soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.